Well, hello everyone. Here to show you the deer letter coloring activity right here. As you see right here is the reason why I picked the deer letter was basically talking about is a story from this morning whenever I was walking to work. It was that you're walking along, say is the sidewalk right here, and it's like you have a sidewalk. It's like I guess that would be like what you call going to northeast or on a Providence road it is, but. Anyway, but here in Columbia, but anyway, that you have right here is that the deer right here is I went ahead and drew right here is a picture right here of me and while I was walking to work this morning it was, and basically about my experience, of course, as knowing about walking to work is whenever I first was walking to work that anybody probably think about feels pretty strange, especially around at that time in the morning it is that you knowing about of course that was before the sun was up, it was, and then knowing about that there was apparently there has been a I think flood a flood watch or something like that was out this morning, it was here in you say in Missouri it is that there was there's been some flood watches it was going on. So what happened was that I would check the weather forecast before I took off to go to work. It was to walk to work that I while I was walking that I can hear, of course, crickets in the background. It's like back in the say the wood, I guess you say the fields it is. A lot of times you say that there's a lot of plants and stuff like that. There would be like say a lot of crickets and grasshoppers and anything, and then frogs. And if most of us know about that, while I was walking, of course, for whatever reason, that it was like that you hear unusual sounds, such as I don't really exactly know about what a bullfrog sounds like, if it's like but but basically I heard some unusual sounds, of course, coming from say that the fields it was, and I know that they're doing some construction around town, as around the city it is, and walking out at that around that time of the morning it was, especially around 5 around 10 after 5, something like that, in the morning. And it was like 5:10, say in the morning it was. A lot of times it's like AM, but anyway, that you have it there is while I was walking that I had noticed that there was some weird looking objects, of course, that were about I think 15-20 feet, actually for about 30-40 feet away, something like that. And from those tall objects that while I kept walking that they look like deer. And a lot of times anybody probably think about that what do usually deer look like. A lot of times they usually look like, which you say besides in close up it is that they kind of look like they got that tree, they kind of look like tall bushes or something like that. But I can remember while I was walking that I seen 2 deer. It was one of them that had already ran, of course, back in in the fielded area, but one of them, of course, was just standing there. And while I was walking, of course, I was walking, and then for whatever reason, I was like, whenever the deer looks at you, it's like a lot of times it's like that, like between, are you scared of me or should I be scared of you or anything like that. But while I was walking, it seems like that's something that you would normally see on one of those movies it was, to where that you really just don't know really what's out there, knowing about what you call is between monster frog and, of course, the porcupine or anything like that. But this morning, though, that some unusual sounds, of course, I heard, but a lot of people probably think about that you may walk a little faster, just to get away from that area it was. But basically, though, that from my experience from walking to work around that time in the morning it was, is not really about the fact about that maybe if it tired me out of walking, but it was about 3 miles, but But knowing about right here is you have right here's the distance between from where I was and then with the deer. And anybody maybe think about, well, how come you didn't get no pictures of the deer? I'm like, well, one, I didn't have my camera with me, and two, that it's like that I would more likely, well, I don't know how good of a photo I would have gotten. Anybody would more likely think about that, especially with the deers, that they more likely would not. I didn't think that I was going to get a real good close up, of course, of the deer, because whenever they run, back in the bushes, it is a lot of times they're pretty fast too. But anyway, you have right here is the deer, and then of course the details, for like the back, wilderness, type area. It was at back here will be like what you call like a field. It is. So it's like with tall bushes, and then of course tall grass and stuff like that. But anyway, they got some fields about back in here. It is that the deer would be running around through there, and then of course I guess they go. They a lot of times they come out between 11 o'clock and then 5 or 6 a.m. Just to kind of you say look around. It is, and if they're munching on the grains or munching on the grass or anything like that. But anyway, but you have right here is the deer, and anybody would more likely think about that I could maybe get like what you call like a good photograph, of course, of a deer. Maybe if I were to actually spot one while I was driving a couple of times, that I would see deer a couple of times. But then of course if I would be driving to work, coming that direction, that a lot of times I would not find a deer. And with anybody who probably think about with the deer letter, it's like, why did you give it the specific name? Well, talk about it is like if we use the word, it's like by the name of dear aunt or dear dear uncle or anything like that, dear boss or something like that. But let's say anybody probably think about it, it's pretty much spelled different. But right here, as you got right here is the deer, and I could probably tell anybody here that with between from where I was, I would probably say that the deer and I were probably about, I would say, at least 5 feet away from each other. We were not the deer was not very far away from me, and I was kind of surprised as knowing about that with the deer though, that whenever I seen the deer though, I decided to go ahead and just, if anything, just draw a picture, of course, of what I'm talking about right here. Is that whenever I was walking, of course, that I was kept walking, but the deer will be startling, and say be looking at me, and at the time it was remind me of that movie, Jurassic Park. It is, if you see an unusual creature, it is, especially around that time of the morning. It is, and you got right here is it's the the creature right here, and I don't know if I'm talking about Bigfoot, but I'm talking about type of a deer looking creature right here that a lot of times if they spot any type of a humans, it is, or anything unusual, that more likely that they're going to go ahead and take off, run away. It is. And if I would have gotten maybe could have gotten maybe a photograph of it, then maybe it would I would probably say that maybe try to post it maybe later on, maybe on like YouTube or anything like that. But I guarantee that yep, I didn't get no photographs of it. I even have a camera on my phone. It is, and anybody probably think about this, like keep in mind is like to have your camera focused in case of so you see another deer, huh? But I remember the weather that morning. This morning I should say that it was rainy, and I can still. They were issuing flood advisories. You got right here is the cloud right here, the clouds, and I can actually see rain clouds, of course, dripping off. That's like I guess you see from the south to the east it is, and then right here is that right here, show example right here is to say is my hand, it's like for for the deer letter is talking about right here is that talk about what do you think that maybe the sentence you start out with is like so far as to keep in mind is knowing about it's like for anybody probably think about tell the story. And more likely, if I could tell you a story about knowing about my experience, of course, of walking around, and anybody could more likely think about that if you would be stunned if you maybe seen anything such as what you call, maybe crime scene, or maybe a UFO or something like that. But basically, a couple times, whenever each time I would walk somewhere around that time of the night, it was just like, yeah, that knowing about, see a deer, and a couple times that I think that I was like, that I would at least like to see one, and then a couple times whenever I drove to work, I didn't see one, and then, so far from this morning it was. Not only did I see one, but I got pretty close to it, because it's not like that I was walking and the deer didn't see me or nothing. But I would probably say that from the distance from where I was and from where the deer was, it was like that was a pretty close distance, from knowing about with the deer, though. That I just kept walking. But if I would have been able to had my camera with me, then I could maybe gotten a picture of the deer. And a lot of times they probably say about you turn the flash off, because if you had the flash on, then more likely that you're going to scare the deer away. It is. But anyway, any type of wildlife, anybody probably think about that so far with the deer letter, any type of wildlife that you may explore, it is that it kind of reminds me of, say, it's like maybe like a history class or any type of a science related type class. It is knowing about the best ways, of course, of how to capture the best, you say, of wildlife. It is basically as between standing somewhere, you say within a distance, it's like with the calculation it is. And but knowing about right here is with the deer, it is that with the deer, that the deer would be just it was like on a rainy night. It's like it wasn't raining too much this morning, but that last night, between 9 and 10 or 11 o'clock, at night, it was pouring down rain and storming. It was. And knowing about, you can still actually hear the water coming down from there was a few I think sewage drains, and then of course the storm drains it. But other than that, you still hear water coming down, say, from streams. It is. And that knowing about, anybody probably think about that yeah, it's like to keep in mind, it's like knowing about with the plants and stuff like that you more likely you will probably see. It is. But on the other hand too, that about the distance between from where you are and then of course where the deer was, is knowing about that that was pretty kind of neat, knowing about that. Yeah, that you'd be out at that time in the morning and to do whatever, and then just knowing about that, kind of thinking about that. Well, hopefully that no monsters get me or anything like that. If there's a monster on my bed or whatever it is. But other than that, it's talk about, it's like the deer letter. It's talk about the letter that pretty much needs like to explore anything that is amazing. But other than that, it's talking about color activity so far as the deer letter coloring.